Today, we're going to enter the sacred territories of Native American legends with 7 terrifying stories involving skinwalkers. Get ready to hear chilling tales about these supernatural entities capable of transforming into animals and imitating human voices to lure their victims. So settle in, listen out for any strange sounds coming from outside, and let's begin this chilling journey. Oh, and before any skinwalkers find out where you live, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, activate the little bell, and leave your like. This helps the channel a lot and ensures that you don't miss out on any terrifying content like this. Let's go. 1. The Exchange. In the Redlands of the Navajo Reservation, Arizona, the Mitchell family spotted the elderly man lying by the side of the road. David, an anthropology professor, Karen, a doctor, and Lily, their 16-year-old daughter, were on their 3rd day of vacation when they found the man with a cut on his forehead. "He needs care," Karen declared after examining him. "He's dehydrated and confused." The elderly man was mumbling in broken English and Diné, the Navajo language. His dark eyes were fixed on Lily with disturbing intensity. "The rental house is 20 minutes away," David suggested. "We can take care of him there." Ignoring the warning about never transporting strangers on reservation roads after dark, they took the old man. During the journey, Lily noticed that, although he looked frail, his movements had an unsettling fluidity. When no one was looking, his eyes would change. The irises expanding until the white was gone. In the isolated house, Karen treated the wound while David prepared a room. The man refused to give his name, answering only with a strange smile. At 2:17 a.m., Lily woke up to strange sounds, bones cracking and skin stretching. Peeking through the crack in her guest's door, she saw the old man contorting himself at impossible angles, his skin melting and reforming as he took on the exact appearance of her father. Backing away silently, Lily locked herself in her room. The stories about the Yinaldlushi, skinwalkers who could assume animal or human forms, now seemed terribly real. The next morning, David was in the kitchen. Everything about him seemed perfect, but Lily noticed subtle details. He didn't blink often enough, and his movements were somewhat mechanical. "Did you sleep well, dear?" he asked, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Where's the man we brought?" Lily asked casually. "He left before dawn," Karen replied, entering the kitchen. "He said his family lived nearby." Lily realized that something was wrong with her mother too. Karen would never allow a concussed patient to leave without a final assessment. Her eyes, normally expressive, seemed dull. Over coffee, Lily observed her parents interacting. When Karen smiled, Lily caught a glimpse of teeth that were slightly more pointed than usual. "I've been thinking," said David, "we should extend our stay indefinitely." "Excellent idea," agreed Karen. Her real parents would never have suggested that. David had lectures scheduled and Karen, patients waiting. Pretending to be normal, Lily spent the day observing strange behavior. David couldn't remember where he kept his notebook, and Karen put sugar in her coffee, something her diabetic mother would never do. In the evening, Lily discovered the missing cell phones and car keys. In her parents' bedroom, she found pieces of dried skin under the mattress and clothes stained with dried blood. At dinner, David served almost raw meat, something her vegetarian father would never touch. "You need to eat," he insisted. "We have big plans for you tonight." Karen smiled, her eyes momentarily yellowing. "Tonight is special. It's your turn." Realizing the danger, Lily ran to her room and barricaded the door. From the hallway, she heard strange footsteps approaching, alternating between light and too heavy. "Lily," called her father's perfectly imitated but empty voice, "we're just evolving as a family. You'll enjoy being anyone, anything," added her mother's voice. The house was isolated, with no neighbors for miles. As the door shook, Lily found the bag of herbs bought from a Navajo vendor. Protection against those who walk among skins. The door cracked open, revealing not her parents, but something between forms. Stretched skin, black eyes, an inhumanly wide mouth. Lily opened her bag, releasing a bitter smell. On the other side of the door, she heard an angry hiss and a yelp of pain. "When the sun comes up," came the distorted voice, "we'll leave as your family, and we'll keep swapping." In the darkness, Lily understood. Her real parents were probably dead, and the Skinwalkers now wanted to complete her surrogate family, either by transforming her or taking her form after eliminating her. 2. The photographer. In the vast landscapes of Canyon de Chelly National Monument, Arizona, wildlife photographer James Mercer set up his time-lapse cameras to capture the movement of the stars over the ancient rock formations. At 34, James had built a respectable career, documenting wildlife in remote habitats. "Just one more night, and I'll have enough material," he muttered as he checked the angles of the 3 automatic cameras. The sun was beginning to set, painting the desert in orange hues. A local Navajo guide, Thomas Begay, had warned James about photographing certain areas after dark. "Some things shouldn't be captured in pictures," he said seriously, "especially at the new moon." James respected local traditions, but his curiosity often overcame his caution. One of the cameras was aimed at a rock formation that Thomas had specifically mentioned as the site of ancient ceremonies. The next morning, reviewing the images on his laptop, James noticed something strange in the sequence captured by the forbidden camera at around 2:40 a.m. A humanoid figure appeared at the edge of the frame, initially crouching. In subsequent images, captured at 10-second intervals, the figure seemed to be changing. On closer inspection in his hotel, James felt a chill. The sequence of 18 photos showed what seemed to be an impossible transformation. A man shrinking, his skin stretching and reforming until it took the form of a coyote. The last images showed the animal looking directly at the camera, its eyes reflecting the light with a disturbingly human consciousness. Fascinated and skeptical, James enhanced the images, checking that there was no manipulation or technical fault. Convinced of its authenticity, he published the sequence on his professional blog under the title "Mysterious Transformation Captured in Canyon de Chelly." The post went viral immediately. Thomas Begay called James, his voice tense. "You need to remove these images now. You've captured a Skinwalker, a Yi Nald Lushi. By showing his transformation to the world, you've exposed him, and he'll come after you." James maintained his skepticism. "They're just interesting pictures, Thomas. There's probably a rational explanation." That evening, James received a text message from his girlfriend, Eliza, who was in Phoenix. "I'm home early. I'm in the lobby of your hotel." Surprised, James went downstairs to find her. Eliza seemed normal, her smile, her voice, even the perfume she wore. But during their conversation, James noticed small inconsistencies. She couldn't remember the name of their cat, and she ordered a dish with peanuts, which the real Eliza was allergic to. When Eliza suggested a night walk to see the stars in a secluded area, James made up an excuse and went back to his room alone. Shivering, he called Eliza's real number, who answered sleepily in Phoenix, confirming that she hadn't traveled. Over the next few days, the pattern continued. Her editor called suggesting a meeting in a remote canyon. A cousin he hadn't seen for years showed up at the hotel, insisting that James accompany him to a sacred site. Each meeting followed the same pattern. People he knew well, almost perfect in appearance and behavior, but with small flaws that revealed the imposture. Each one tried to isolate him from witnesses. Paranoid, James locked himself in his hotel room, removed the photos from his blog, and called Thomas. "It's too late," explained the guide. "The Skinwalker is hunting you, using the forms of those close to you. He can't enter where he's not invited, but he'll try to trick you into leaving voluntarily." "How can I stop him?" asked James, looking nervously out of the window. "You can't. Skinwalkers are wizards who have abandoned their humanity for power. Their only hope is to leave these lands immediately and never return." James booked a flight for the following morning. That night, while he was packing, he heard a knock on the door. Thomas's voice called out from the hallway, "James, I've figured out how to help you. We need to perform a protection ritual right away." "Suspicious?" James asked through the door. "What was the specific warning you gave me before I installed my cameras?" A long silence followed. Then a voice that no longer sounded exactly like Thomas replied, "Does it matter? Open the door. I'm here to help." James stepped back, his heart racing. On the other side of the door, something lightly scratched the wood. "You can't hide forever, photographer," came a voice that now alternated between Thomas's and something more guttural. "You saw me. You exposed me. Now I need to wear your skin." At dawn, James rushed to the airport, ignoring the various familiar figures who tried to approach him on the way. An old colleague waving from a cafe, his mother inexplicably standing at the hotel reception desk, even a version of himself smiling from the seat of a parked car. At the airport, while waiting for his flight, he received a final message from an unknown number, a photo of his house in Seattle, taken recently with the front door open. James understood the clear message. He could leave Arizona, but the Skinwalker now knew every aspect of his life. It had seen his face through the camera and could now follow and transform itself into anyone James knew. As he boarded the plane, James couldn't stop studying the faces around him, looking for signs of falsehood, for eyes that remained fixed for too long, for smiles that didn't seem entirely human. The Skinwalker could be anyone now: the flight attendant, the old woman in the seat next to him, or perhaps he was already waiting in Seattle, using a familiar face to welcome him. A simple sequence of photos had turned his life into an endless nightmare, where every familiar face now carried the seed of doubt, and trust had become a luxury he could never afford again. 3. Familiar voices. On the redlands of the Navajo reservation in Arizona, Kaya Begay's story echoed like a warning about the dangers of abandoning traditions. At the age of 28, Kaya had left the reservation 5 years earlier, exchanging the desert for the concrete of Phoenix, where she worked as a nurse in a busy hospital. Her departure had not been friendly. Her grandfather, a respected medicine man, had warned that abandoning the path of Hojo, the harmony and beauty that underpins Navajo spirituality, would leave Kaya vulnerable to forces that outsiders didn't understand. "Our clan system protects us," he had explained. "Away from family, you walk without a shield." Kaya had dismissed these warnings as the superstitions of an old man, eager to escape the constraints of life on the reservation. In Phoenix, She rarely called home, preferring to distance herself from traditions she considered outdated. Everything changed one winter's night when her phone rang at 3:17 in the morning. Her mother's voice sounded urgent, almost desperate. "Kaya, you need to come back. Your grandfather is dying, and he's asking for you." Half asleep, Kaya promised to visit at the weekend, but didn't commit. Over the next few days, the calls increased. Her younger sister, her uncle, even her cousin. They all called at odd hours of the night, each with similar messages about family emergencies. "Something's wrong on the reservation. We need you here. Your grandfather says only you can help with the ritual. Go home, Kaya. We're in danger." After a week of disturbing phone calls, Kaya finally gave in. She asked for a few days off and drove back to the reserve, a 4-hour journey across the arid Arizona landscape. As she approached the family home, she noticed something strange. There was no smoke coming from the chimney despite the biting cold. His uncle's traditional car was not parked in its usual spot. An oppressive silence hung over the property. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the house was dusty, with clear signs of abandonment. Familiar photographs on the walls seemed to stare at her accusingly. Confused, Kaya drove to her Aunt Marie's house, a few kilometers away. The shock on the old woman's face when she saw her was immediate. "Kaya, what are you doing here?" "I came to see my family. They called saying there was an emergency." Marie's face paled. "Your mother and grandfather died 3 weeks ago in an accident on the road to Gallup. Your uncle and sister have been at your cousin's house in Albuquerque since the funeral." Kaya felt the blood freeze in her veins. "But I spoke to them, all of them, on the phone." Marie made a protective gesture, touching the amulet around her neck. "The people who called you weren't your relatives, Kaya. They were Yinaldlushi. Skinwalkers, the word that was never spoken openly. Evil witches from the Navajo tradition who could assume animal forms or perfectly imitate human voices." "Impossible," muttered Kaya, although a shiver ran down her spine. "Those are just old stories." Marie shook her head gravely. "Your grandfather tried to warn you before he died. He said that something had been watching the family for months, something that was waiting for an opportunity." That night, staying at Marie's house, Kaya was awoken by soft knocks on the window. Outside, in the darkness, she heard her mother's voice calling her. "Kaya, darling, come out here. We need to talk." The voice was perfect. The same soft tone, the same subtle accent. For a moment, Kaya almost got up to answer it. Then she remembered. Her mother was dead. The knocks continued, as the voice alternated between different family members, each one sounding exactly as Kaya remembered. The pleas became more insistent as the hours passed. The next morning, Marie took Kaya to a medicine man who had been her grandfather's apprentice. He explained that skinwalkers were attracted to those who abandoned their traditions and family. By rejecting her clan and cultural heritage, Kaya had made herself vulnerable. "The Yinaldlushi can't just walk into a Navajo house," he explained. "They need to be invited. By abandoning your family and traditions, you opened a door. Now they're trying to lure you out to a place where they can reach you." To protect herself, Kaya would need to reconnect with her cultural roots and take part in a purification ceremony. The ritual lasted all night, with chants, sacred herbs, and prayers that Kaya hadn't believed in for years. During the ceremony, her phone rang repeatedly. On the screen, the names of her deceased relatives appeared one after the other. Kaya watched in horror as text messages arrived, photos of her home in Phoenix, taken from inside the apartment, showing that something had been there while she was on the reservation. At dawn, when the ritual was over, the calls stopped. The medicine man explained that the protection would only last as long as Kaya honored her traditions and stayed connected to her heritage. The Navajo clan system isn't just about tradition, he said, it's protection. When you stand for your mother's and father's clan, you connect to an ancestral network that the Yinaldlushi can't penetrate. Kaya never returned to Phoenix. She took up work as a nurse at the reserve clinic, rebuilding bridges with her living relatives and relearning the traditions she had discarded. At night, she sometimes still heard familiar voices calling her from the darkness beyond her window. Voices that were too perfect, too patient, waiting for her to forget again who she was and where she came from. What's up, guys? The Skinwalker stories are chilling so far, aren't they? If you're enjoying these frightening tales, how about taking a quick break and subscribing to the channel? Just click on the subscribe button below and leave a like too. This really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep bringing you more terrifying content like this. It's quick and makes all the difference. Now, let's get back to our Skinwalker stories, shall we? There's still a lot of terror ahead. 4. The New Skin. In the arid lands of northern Arizona, where the wind carried ancient stories through the red rock formations, Dr. Marcus Whitley had established his research camp. At 42, with a respectable academic career in cultural anthropology, Marcus believed he was about to make the discovery that would make him famous, documenting the forbidden rituals of the Navajo Skinwalkers. After 3 years of gaining the reluctant trust of some members of the community, Marcus had collected fragments of information about the Yinaldlushi, witch doctors who, through dark rituals, gained the power to transform themselves into animals. Most Navajo refused to even talk about the subject, fearful of attracting the attention of these evil entities. "You're playing with forces you don't understand," warned Joseph Begay, one of the few elders who still tolerated their presence. "Some traditions remain secret for a reason." Marcus smiled with the condescension typical of a Western academic in the face of native superstitions. In his diary, he wrote, "The taboos surrounding skinwalkers clearly serve as a mechanism of social control, discouraging deviant behavior through supernatural fear." Marcus's obsession intensified when he discovered a deteriorated manuscript in the university library in Flagstaff. Notes by a 19th-century missionary who had witnessed and partially documented a transformation ritual. The pages contained descriptions of specific herbs, body painting patterns, and words in Diné that supposedly facilitated metamorphosis. In his isolated camp, away from disapproving eyes, Marcus decided to test the ritual, not because he really believed it would work, but to understand the psychological experience of the practitioners. He collected the plants described in the manuscript, prepared the mixture according to the instructions, and painted the symbols on his naked body under the light of the new moon. The ancient words sounded strange on his tongue as he recited the incantation. At first, nothing happened apart from the wind rising around him. Then the pain began, not gradually, but like an explosion in every cell of his body. Marcus fell, writhing on the red earth. His bones crackled and realigned, his skin stretched like hot rubber. The agony was unbearable, but even more terrible was the sensation of his consciousness fragmenting, human memories mixing with primal, predatory impulses he had never experienced. When dawn broke, Marcus crawled into his trailer, unrecognizable. His body had changed, not completely to animal, nor remaining entirely human. His fingers had lengthened, ending in curved claws. His skin had acquired a strange texture, like dried leather. Its eyes, in the mirror, reflected a sickly yellow, the pupils vertical like those of a coyote. Horrified, Marcus tried to reverse the process, but the manuscript didn't mention how to return to human form. Over the next few days, he realized that he was stuck in an in-between state, neither human nor animal, unable to complete the transformation in either direction. Even worse were the mental changes. Predatory thoughts invaded his consciousness. The smell of a rabbit passing near the camp awakened a hunger that went beyond physical need, a desire to hunt, to taste warm flesh and blood. At night, he dreamt of chases across the vast desert, waking up with the metallic taste of blood in his mouth and no memory of what he had done. Desperate, Marcus searched for Joseph Begay, keeping himself covered with baggy clothes and sunglasses. The old man recoiled at the sight of him, immediately recognizing what had happened. "You've crossed a line that shouldn't be crossed," said Joseph, keeping his distance. "There is no turning back. Incomplete transformation is worse than complete. You will remain trapped between worlds, gradually losing your humanity." "There must be some way," Marcus pleaded, his voice now a harsh growl. "Some purification ceremony." Joseph shook his head sadly. "The Yi-Naldlushi choose their path consciously, abandoning their humanity for power. You did the same, albeit out of academic arrogance rather than malice. The result is the same." Over the following weeks, Marcus documented his ongoing transformation in a frenetic diary. His notes, initially scientific and methodical, became increasingly erratic. His writing deteriorated, along with his ability to think like a human. Day 17. Teeth changing. Sharper. Difficult to speak. Constant hunger. I can't remember my mother's name. Day 23. Hunting dreams every night. I woke up with blood. I don't know if it's animal or... Day 29. Difficult words now. Memories fading. Man, I was disappearing. In his last legible entry, Marcus wrote, "If anyone finds this, burn my belongings. Don't look for me. What is left of me is no longer human, and what is taking control must not be released." 3 months after the ritual, a group of hikers found Marcus's abandoned campsite. His trailer was empty, with claw marks on the inside walls, as if something had tried to escape its own skin. The diary was found and given to the university, where it remained archived as evidence of a mental breakdown due to prolonged isolation. In nearby Navajo communities, stories began to circulate about a new danger roaming the desert. Neither man nor beast, but something between worlds, with eyes that reflected human knowledge and bestial hunger. The elders warned young people not to venture out alone after dark, especially during the new moon. At night, on the borders of the reserve, you could sometimes hear a sound that wasn't entirely an animal howl or a human scream. The wail of a creature trapped between forms, carrying the burden of an arrogance that had cost it not only its humanity, but also its soul. 5. The Last Guardian. In the arid lands of the Navajo Reservation in Arizona, the setting sun painted the sky in shades of red and orange as the old shaman Thomas Begay watched the horizon from his balcony. At 92, Thomas was the last of his lineage with the ancestral knowledge to identify the Yi-Naldlushi, the Skinwalkers who hid among the community. Thomas knew his time was running out. The pneumonia that had afflicted him for weeks was not responding to modern treatments, and the old remedies were only alleviating his suffering. More worrying than his own mortality was the knowledge that would die with him. The ability to recognize the subtle signs that revealed a skinwalker disguised as a human. His grandson, Michael, a 25-year-old medical graduate from the University of Arizona, had reluctantly returned to the reservation after receiving the call about his grandfather's condition. Michael represented the new Navajo generation, educated in the outside world, skeptical of traditions he considered outdated superstitions. "You need to learn, grandson," said Thomas in Diné, the Navajo language, his voice weak but determined. "When I'm gone, there won't be anyone else who can see through their disguises." Michael sighed, adjusting the stethoscope around his neck. "Grandpa, I came here as a doctor. We need to focus on your treatment, not old stories." Thomas gripped his grandson's wrist with surprising strength. "They already know I'm passing on the knowledge. They're getting closer. I can feel it." Over the next few weeks, while caring for his grandfather, Michael noticed subtle changes in the community. Neighbors who rarely visited appeared frequently, always at dusk, offering help or food. A new nurse at the health center insisted on replacing Thomas's medication. The local sheriff, normally distant, took an unusual interest in the old shaman's health. Thomas refused to talk openly about skinwalkers, following the Navajo cultural taboo. Instead, he taught through coded stories and practical observations. "Notice how she never blinks," Thomas whispered when the new nurse left the room, "and how her movements are too fluid, as if her bones were different." Initially skeptical, Michael began to notice disturbing patterns. The nurse actually blinked rarely. The sheriff left unusually deep footprints, as if he were heavier than he looked, and some visitors emitted a subtle odor, reminiscent of rotting flesh, perceptible only momentarily. One night, awake to administer medication to his grandfather, Michael saw a figure in the yard through the window, apparently human, but moving in a wrong, almost mechanical way. When the moon illuminated its face, its eyes reflected the light like those of an animal. The next morning, Thomas was weaker, but his eyes shone with urgency. "They're gathering, grandson. They sense that I'm sharing the secrets. We need to complete your initiation before it's too late." Reluctantly, Michael took part in the ritual Thomas had prepared, an ancient ceremony involving sacred herbs, chants, and sand paintings. During the ritual, something changed in Michael's perception. It was as if a veil had been lifted, allowing him to see beyond appearances. When the sheriff appeared that afternoon, Michael saw for the first time what lurked behind the human disguise. A dark and distorted presence, wearing human skin like an ill-fitting mask. "I've come to check on the old man," said the sheriff, his eyes fixed on Thomas in a predatory manner. "He's resting," Michael replied, positioning himself between the visitor and his grandfather's room. "He can't see anyone right now." The look the sheriff gave Michael contained recognition and menace. He knew that Michael could now see his true nature. That night, Thomas revealed the full truth. The Skinwalkers had infiltrated key positions in the community over the years. Only the respect and fear they felt for Thomas had prevented them from taking complete control. With his death imminent, they planned to eliminate any threat to his power, including the grandson who now carried the knowledge to identify them. As the new moon rose, 3 figures surrounded the house: the sheriff, the nurse, and the owner of the local grocery store. Their movements were synchronized, predatory. Inside the house, Thomas was performing his last act as guardian, completing the transfer of knowledge to Michael through an ancient ritual. "Remember," Thomas whispered with his last breath, "they cannot enter where they are not invited. Keep the traditions alive, and they will protect you." When the Skinwalkers finally broke into the house, they found only Thomas's body. Michael had left, taking with him the ancestral knowledge and the responsibility of becoming the new guardian, the last defender against those who walked between two worlds. 6. The empty road. On the endless Route 160 that cuts through the Navajo reservation in northern Arizona, Jack Harmon drove his 18-wheeler under the starry desert sky. At 47, Jack had spent half his life on the road, hauling freight across the American Southwest. He knew every turn, every gas station, and every trucker's story about this isolated region. The night was exceptionally dark, with no moon, only the stars and the truck's headlights illuminating the asphalt that stretched like a black scar across the red landscape. The radio picked up only static, and Jack drove in silence, keeping alert after 12 hours behind the wheel. It was near the border with New Mexico that he saw the hitchhiker for the first time. A male figure on the side of the road, arm outstretched in the universal gesture of asking for a ride. Wearing jeans and a worn leather jacket, he looked like a middle-aged Native American. Jack instinctively slowed down, but something in the man's eyes made him change his mind. He accelerated, leaving the hitchhiker behind. In the rearview mirror, Jack watched the figure receding into the distance. For a moment, it seemed as if the man had turned his head at an impossible angle to maintain visual contact with the truck that was driving away. 40 minutes, and almost 70 kilometers later, Jack almost slammed on the brakes. The same man, he was sure it was the same one, was standing by the side of the road, in the same position, with the same penetrating gaze. This time, Jack didn't even slow down, going over 100 kilometers per hour. Impossible, he muttered to himself. It must be someone similar. But when the same hitchhiker appeared for the third time, now on the Colorado border, Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. No one could have gotten that far that fast, especially on a road with so little traffic. At the truck stop in Cortez, Colorado, Jack mentioned the strange hitchhiker to Manny, a Ute truck driver he had known for years. "You saw him 3 times in one night?" Manny asked, his face hardening. "Always the same man, same clothes?" When Jack confirmed it, Manny lowered his voice. "My people have stories about skinwalkers. Yinaldlushi, the Navajo call them skinwalkers. They can take different forms, but they prefer to appear as travelers asking for help." Jack laughed nervously. "Come on, Manny. They were probably different people who looked similar in the dark." Manny didn't smile. "If you see him again, don't stop. Whatever happens, don't offer a ride." On the return journey, 3 days later, Jack drove along the same stretch at night. A dust storm had formed, reducing visibility to just a few meters. That's when he saw the hitchhiker again, this time in the middle of the storm, the dust swirling around him without seeming to affect him. Jack drove straight through, but his engine began to fail soon after. The truck lost power until it came to a complete stop. Checking the instruments, he saw that the fuel tank was inexplicably empty, even though he had filled up less than 100 kilometers before. Stuck on the deserted road during a dust storm, Jack tried to use the radio, but it only picked up static. His cell phone had no signal. As he considered his options, he heard knocks on the truck door. Outside, partially visible through the red dust, was the hitchhiker, smiling in a way that didn't reach his eyes. "Do you need any help?" asked the man, his voice strangely melodious. "I can guide you to the nearest gas station." Remembering Manny's warning, Jack hesitated, but the storm was getting worse, and the prospect of being stranded alone on the deserted road was just as frightening. "Get in," he finally said, unlocking the passenger door. The hitchhiker slid into the seat with unusual grace, his movements too fluid for someone of his apparent age. Up close, Jack noticed disturbing details. The man's skin seemed strangely stretched over his facial bones, and his eyes had a yellowish quality that caught the light unnaturally. "Keep going," instructed the passenger. "There's a turnoff up ahead that few people know about." Jack started the engine, which was now running perfectly, and began to drive slowly through the storm. He adjusted the rearview mirror and felt his blood run cold. Where his passenger's reflection should have been, there was only the empty seat. Trying to stay calm, Jack continued driving while the hitchhiker gave instructions, guiding him away from the main road along a secondary path that meandered deeper into the desert. The storm subsided, revealing a starry sky and a desolate landscape with no sign of civilization. "Where exactly is this post?" asked Jack, his voice betraying his nervousness. The passenger smiled again, more broadly this time, revealing teeth that looked too sharp. "There is no post, Jack Harmon, but you already knew that, didn't you?" The fact that the hitchhiker knew his full name confirmed Jack's worst fears. Suddenly, the passenger began to change, his limbs elongating, fingers turning into claws, skin stretching over a bone structure that was reconfiguring itself. Jack stepped on the brake and opened his door, ready to jump out of the moving truck. But the hitchhiker, now clearly non-human, was quicker, grabbing his arm with supernatural strength. "3 times you passed me without stopping," said the creature, its voice now a guttural growl. "The 4th time, you invited me in. Now, I'm bound to you." The next morning, Jack's truck was found abandoned in a remote area of the reserve. A search was launched, but no trace of the truck driver was discovered. Curiously, another trucker reported seeing Jack hitchhiking on Route 160 that same night, only to see him again 80 kilometers down the road, unable to have gotten there so quickly. And so the legend of the Route 160 hitchhiker gained a new chapter, as something wearing Jack Harmon's skin continued its eternal search for lonely drivers willing to offer rides on the empty roads that cut through the ancestral lands. 7. Yellow Eyes. On the winding roads that cut through the Arizona desert, Sarah Mitchell drove her Honda Civic as the sun set over the horizon. The trip from Phoenix to Flagstaff was supposed to be simple, but her decision to take a shortcut through the Navajo reservation to save time proved disastrous when a coyote suddenly appeared on the road. The steering wheel spun violently in his hands as he tried to swerve. The car skidded, flipping off the road before crashing into a rock formation. The last thing Sarah saw before losing consciousness was the coyote standing in the road, watching her with a disturbingly human intensity. When she woke up, she was lying on a rustic bed inside a wooden cabin. A tall, thin, middle-aged man with Native American features was applying a strong-smelling ointment to a cut on her forehead. He didn't smile when he saw that she had woken up. He just nodded silently. "Where am I?" asked Sarah, trying to sit up and feeling a twinge of pain in her ribs. "My house," he replied in a low, hoarse voice, as if he wasn't used to talking. "I found you on the road. No cell phone signal here. Road blocked by the storm." Sarah looked out of the window and saw that a sandstorm had indeed formed, enveloping the hut in a red-orange veil. The man introduced himself only as John, with no surname. He explained that he was a loner who lived far from the reserve and that the nearest hospital was more than 2 hours away. "Stay until the storm passes," he said in short, garbled sentences. "I'll take care of you." Over the next 2 days, Sarah slowly recovered under the care of the silent stranger. He prepared herbal infusions that soothed her pain and applied poultices to her wounds that seemed to speed up healing. Despite his intimidating appearance and limited communication, his care was efficient and respectful. However, as her mind cleared, Sarah began to notice disturbing details. John never ate in her presence. Sometimes she would hear strange sounds coming from outside during the night. Not exactly coyote howls, but something similar, but distorted, almost like words. On the third night, she woke up thirsty and saw John sitting in a chair in the corner of the room, watching her. In the almost total darkness, his eyes shone with a yellowish reflection, like those of a nocturnal animal. When he realized she was awake, he quickly looked away and left the room. In the morning, Sarah found strange footprints outside the window, too big for a human, with marks that looked like claws. When she questioned John, he mumbled something about coyotes approaching the cabin at night. The storm finally abated, but John seemed reluctant to take her back to civilization. "Not strong enough yet," he insisted. "Wait another day." That afternoon, while John went out to check the road, Sarah explored the hut. In a locked trunk that she managed to open, she found dozens of driver's licenses and IDs, all belonging to different people who had disappeared on the region's roads in recent years. Among them, documents that seemed to belong to the real owner of the cabin. With growing horror, Sarah realized that her savior was probably not John, nor was he the rightful owner of the place. Even more disturbing, in a notebook, she found detailed drawings of ancient rituals with notes in Diné, the Navajo language, and the word Skinwalker circled several times. Sarah remembered the stories she had dismissed as superstition, the Yinallushi of Navajo mythology, witches who could transform themselves into animals and take on the appearance of other people, the coyote on the road, the yellow eyes in the darkness, the almost human night sounds. When she heard footsteps approaching the cabin, Sarah quickly put everything back and pretended to be asleep. Through half-closed eyelids, she saw John enter, carrying something that looked like fresh, bloody meat. He stopped abruptly, sniffing the air like an animal. "You've been going through my things," he said, his voice different now, deeper, more guttural. "You know." Sarah abandoned the pretense of sleep and confronted him. "What did you do with the people in those IDs?" A strange smile spread across John's face, too wide for a human face. Not who. What? His eyes were now constantly shining with that yellowish reflection. "You should have remained ignorant. It would have made things easier." That night, as the new moon left the desert in almost complete darkness, Sarah faced a terrible truth. The accident had been no coincidence. The coyote on the road, the timely rescue, all part of an elaborate hunt. Her savior had not found her by chance. He had chosen her, isolated her, and was now waiting for the perfect moment to complete his transformation, using the skin of his newest victim to walk among humans for a while longer. The deserted road that Sarah had chosen to save time now seemed infinitely distant, as the yellow eyes watched her from the darkness, patient and hungry, waiting for the right moment to reveal their true nature. And so, we come to the end of our 7 horror stories involving skinwalkers. So, what did you think? Which story gave you the most goosebumps? Will any of them make you think twice before responding to a familiar voice calling your name in the dark? Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. If you enjoyed this dive into the terrifying world of the Skinwalkers, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep bringing you more scary content like this. And if you're not subscribed yet, take the opportunity to subscribe now and activate the little bell.